This episode of the Rebel Education podcast is sponsored by Active Floor. That's activefloor.com and History Rocks at historyrocks.co.uk. We're going to find out more about these two fantastic companies later on in the podcast. Let's get started. Hello, I'm Tom Rogers and this is the Rebel Education podcast. Hello and welcome to another episode of the Rebel Education podcast with me, Tom Rogers. Tough times, isn't it? I'm recording at a time where schools have just closed in the UK. They've just announced that all schools will be closed by Friday. There's a lot of distress and stress and worry and anxiety and uncertainty amongst the profession at the moment. And that's really, I guess, being amplified by social media. There's a lot of help out there as well, but it's also tough to be engaged in what's happening at the moment for a lot of people. Now, yesterday, I went out and recorded a live stream. So this podcast is going to be me talking about the situation at the moment. And in this live stream, I talk about my current personal circumstances, just some reflections really on where I'm at, and I'm sure where a lot of other people are at in their lives at the moment. And also some comments on the job market, what it's going to mean for the job market in the UK beyond this. Just a few thoughts on that and a few questions on that to hopefully get you thinking and reflecting on what could be the case with regards to job opportunities once this crisis subsides, and also some discussion around school leaders and how they are coping or dealing with this. Now, as I've mentioned, this is a very personal reflection from me, almost like a stream of consciousness, really. But listen along and tweet me at Rogers History with any questions or feedback you have, and enjoy the rest of the podcast.
Well, hi, it's Melanie here from historyrocks.co.uk, proud sponsors of today's Rebel Education podcast. Do any of these A-level history comments sound familiar to you? The source was written for the purpose of entertainment. The source was written by a high-ranking official and is therefore valuable. On the one hand and on the other, the historian is not convincing because he fails to mention. If you've answered yes to any of these, then historyrocks.co.uk can help you. We provide student webinars, face-to-face events, teacher CPD and cross-marking services for centres across the country and abroad too. We have a team of senior examiners with years of A-level teaching experience and a bank of great resources too. So come and check out our page. You can find us on historyrocks.co.uk.
Good evening, everyone. Just thought I'd do a little live stream. I'm down here on the shore in Blackpool, and just thought I'd get out and about on a bit of a walk and maybe just talk about tonight. Really, what a day! Like, I can't remember anything this crazy happening in my lifetime in terms of the last week and definitely the last 24 hours. So I've put guest enabling on this live stream. So if you want to call in and have a chat about your day and about what your feelings are, what your thoughts are for the future. My kind of intention here is to talk, I guess, about me in terms of the last year, because it's been and the reason I'm going to do that is not for me, because I can do this anytime I want with anybody, but I thought tonight it's probably going to be someone just sat there thinking, I was just thinking, what the hell, just in terms of the situation, not just in the world, but the uncertainty, the stress of it all, not knowing what's going to happen, on a personal level, on people I know. So first one is to say, at the moment, I've said this on Twitter, I'm living in temporary accommodation. So one thing for me at the minute is, obviously I could, with schools now closing, it may be that logically for me, it would make more sense for me to go home, back to my mum, and maybe my nan. But the issue is that even though my mum doesn't have technically have a underlying health condition, she does have, she has got a weakness there in her chest. She's had various things there. So in my head, I'm going, well, if I go back and leave this hotel that I'm currently living in, move back in with my mum, which isn't ideal anyway, but if I was to do that, then am I then risking giving her the virus? I could self-isolate here for 7 days, obviously, or whatever, 10 days, and then go. But even then, by leaving the house, even to get shopping for her, am I then bringing those germs back into the house? Would I then just be getting paranoid and stressed about bringing those germs back into the house? Exactly the same with my nan. If I move, my nan's 94 now. So if I move back with my nan, it's exactly the same kind of issues. And I know there's going to be loads of people who might be living with someone now where you're thinking, well, why don't I move out and live in a hotel or live in temp accommodation or move in with a mate of my age group if you're living with someone elderly, I mean. So that's stress number one, I guess. And I'm sure loads of people are like thinking about that at the minute. I don't know what the answer to that one is. So you tell me, if someone's out there now on Twitter or whatever, you tell me what the answer to that one is, because I don't know what the answer to that is. My mum said go home, but again, she might not think the same way I do about it. And at the end of the day, can you live with yourself if you've gone back and then something happens further down the line, and not that you would know that you caused it, but you could have contributed to it. And I just don't want that on my shoulders, really. With regards to school closures, I'm very, obviously I'm on a temp contract here. It's been great, by the way, the school here in Blackpool, St George's. I've had a really good time, great kids, great staff. It's been great, but obviously that experience is coming to an end now, beyond May. I would have been in this situation before the pandemic, but now I still need to get a job for September. I did have an interview lined up for last week. That interview was postponed, and I know many other people who are job searching, whether you're in a job now or whether you're trying to get one, are in the same position where interviews are being postponed. And one concern that came in my head at the minute is that, for example, international schools, if people are looking, even if people have secured contracts in international schools, my thinking is a lot of the kids who are in international schools, a lot of the parents, or obviously they might be in business, they might have their businesses, and so on. Will they be able to afford to keep their kids and commit to another year in what could be quite an expensive international school? I know Cobis have said about this massive growth in international schools and so on, but is that now going to hinder that? And I know that's a minor concern when you put it against the others, but I know obviously a lot of people might have secured jobs already in international schools, and I'm thinking, well, if I'm a parent, I'm thinking, well, I'll put my child maybe into a state school instead of an international, wondering whether it's going to change the whole job market, to be honest with you, in terms of and not just private international, but state schools as well. Budgets are going to change, the whole landscape's going to be different, I think. But I don't know. I'm just putting things out there at the minute, because obviously, like, a lot of people are going to take a massive financial hit here. And I was thinking today as well about, about me being isolated now for however long, as we all are, for 6, 8 weeks, 12 weeks, whatever. And then I thought, single parents, in with 3 kids and no dependents to look after the kids, and just stuck in that environment for weeks and weeks and weeks. It's just very, very difficult. And I tweeted out earlier about thinking about some of the things that I've taught, like Anne Frank, for example. I was always like, you always say when I taught Anne Frank, it was like, yeah, imagine being in that situation, and you couldn't ever really imagine it. But obviously you can't compare this situation to what Anne Frank had to go through, but what you can say is living in confinement and isolation, there's going to be a lot of people having a very different experience of life coming up, and I just think it's going to change a lot of perspectives. It's going to change a lot of the way people view things, and a lot of the way we empathise with different situations and different people in different ways. Obviously for me at the minute, it's about trying to get perspective and trying to, if I look back now to 2017, 2018, I had my job in Spain. I had a really good relationships with the students. Hi to them if any of the colleagues and people I work with in Spain are watching this, but I had a really good experience teaching in Spain 2017, 2018, and you take things for granted. I took things for granted, not just in terms of my career and my job, but just in general. When you're in the moment, you don't realise how what you've got and how good it is. I think that's a classic thing to say, isn't it? But it's a very cliched, throw it out a dime a dozen kind of statement, but it is true. When I think back to how I felt then compared to tonight, and the uncertainty and how everything is so finite and everything is so fragile. I don't just mean life, I mean everything. It's like life is short, and it is, and I'm 35 now, and I look at an event like this, and it's not even about, I'm not even talking about the deaths, I'm talking about people's lives being ruined, businesses, everything. And yeah, there's loans and all that, and I think that's good, and I think people will be able to access grants, but no one's not going to take a hit from this. And in a way, I've got less to lose than some people have in this situation, because I entered this period in quite an uncertain time anyway. So I've got less to lose from it in many, many respects. A lot of people have a lot to lose. Also, my thoughts today have just gone with leaders in schools, because I know I get anxious and I get catastrophic in my thinking. And I've been in touch with a few heads and senior leaders over the last few days, and even people with steely determination and an absolute calm balance. There's been cracks there, and I can only think, people who are less, these people I'm talking to are ultra strong, and if they're showing those symptoms of kind of distress and anxiety, then I dread to think what it's like for someone who might not be as strong as that. Like me right now, the last year I've been pretty vulnerable in my mental health, in the way I've been thinking. I've been trying to get over this breakup. It's been really painful for me, so I've been in a vulnerable place. If I was in a leadership position now, I'd be struggling big time. And I know there's people out there who have maybe been going through things in their personal life in the last year and are now being confronted with this. I don't know what the answer to that is, and the only reason I'm doing this live stream is almost to by saying what my situation is or my story is, maybe someone watching is like, oh yeah, we're in this together, even though we're not. Do you know what I mean? It's just social media. But loads of people have DM'd me over the last 6 months or whatever. Loads and loads of people. Some of them I haven't even replied to, offering chat, support, whatever. And that's really kept me going at times. Even just complimentary things like, oh, that was a good resource, or oh, that was a good tweet, or oh, how are you getting on, whatever. And so that's why I'm doing this. That's why I'm saying what where I'm at in my head, and just sharing that and putting it out there, and hopefully someone's you share, and say how things are going for you. But it's been a mad day, absolutely mad day, and I don't think there's an answer other than to keep going and try and see the bigger picture, because at some point we are going to come out of this. And I was saying before, with all the predictions and stuff, who's to say that things might not be better in a few months? I mean, you look at South Korea, China, the cases are going down, so there's nothing to say, okay, you've got Italy and Spain, but at the end of the day, these countries are very different from from the UK or Germany, so it's different. You can't necessarily compare it. So I'm trying to think the big picture, and I'm trying to say, okay, we'll come out of it, and supply teachers, job seekers, TAs, things will come out of it. And I know a lot of schools will put provision in place and for people, and I know that my school are like a family, and a lot of schools will be putting things in place for people in different situations on different kinds of contracts and different things. So I just think we teachers were lucky in a way, because I think people in schools now, there are so many amazing like leaders and even like governors and people around the school who are like, right, we've got to look after X, Y, Z, we're going to look after him. I know head teachers who've called individuals in the last 48 hours and said, go home because I know you have this and you need to, and looking out for people, you know what I mean? And some people haven't got that at all, and that's again another thing in terms of taking things for granted, that this thing makes you think. So I know that's an absolute like rambling mess of a live stream. I haven't really said anything of substance, but I'm gonna carry on walking now. In terms of someone's just said about the exams. I mean, what a disaster. Obviously you can say a million times there's bigger things in life than exams, but for the students who need that for the future and everything, it's just, I don't even know how to think about that or what to say about it. So Chris, might see you Friday, mate. So anyway, take care everyone, and hope to chat over the next few days. And I guess my message to me, this isn't a message to you, because you know what I mean? I hate these like help videos like, hey, here's my message to you, like do this, do this, do this. These are the messages to me, because I'm crap at self-managing, and I'm trying to get better at messaging myself to say, Tom, this is this, this is this, here's the positive, this is how you're doing it, this is what you're doing. And that's my message to me. So I suppose that's what I'm doing. So like, because I've got to try and do it, to just keep going, keep the days ticking over. And you know what? Loneliness is so hard. Like I found loneliness like a real challenge in my life. Even since the age of like being a teenager, I've like longed for that connection with another human being, whether that be in a relationship, whether that be in a friendship. And I think like that is amplified now for a lot of people in this situation, because they're going to be in isolation or semi-isolation, and loneliness is so difficult. So like so in the end of the day, it's like, how do you deal with that? So for me, it's like, first thing is, and I've just had my counselling session actually, and one of the things that we discussed was accepting this situation for what it is, and saying, okay, this is what it is, and it's accepting that and letting that sink in. And that's what I'm doing at the minute. I'm going to go back to my hotel room, and I'm just going to let this situation sink in. And even if it upsets me, even if I start crying, even if I get upset, I'm going, this is the way it is, and this is the way it's going to be. And then it's like adapting to the strategies in that situation and saying, right, how am I going to get through tomorrow and whatever. And I've been in some bad like mental health places in my life where I've had to do that anyway. So this is almost like a practical version of something. And I think there's a lot of people who've suffered from mental health problems in their lives who can offer quite a lot in this situation to people, because it is about managing your mind a little bit, because maybe you don't have the connections, maybe you have to confront loneliness for the first time in your life. I know there's a lot of people who might have been in relationships their whole lives, or I don't know, have had family around their whole lives or whatever, and suddenly it's like, right, you've got to deal with this now. And that is bloody hard, like being in your own mind 24 hours a day. And lucky we've got technology, because if we didn't have technology, if we didn't have FaceTime or the internet or mobile phones, my God, it would be, just imagine that, it would be absolutely awful. So anyway, peace.
Hi there, my name's Gary Beckett and I work for Active Floor in the UK. We're really happy to be sponsoring this podcast and hope that you enjoy it as much as we have. Active Floor. We bring learning, movement and play to the classroom. Do you dream of having the children in your school, primary, secondary, maybe even university, fully motivated and ready for learning? We can bring movement into everyday life and involve learning through physical movement in your teaching. For more details, please go to our website www.activefloor.com for more information.